I mean, Hollywood itself, TV shows, there's always this element of sexual tension. There's always this element of these kind of things. I've heard from a few parents where they're going to see a movie that's got a PG rating or something like that. But actually, if this was early 2000s, that would probably be like an R16 rating. So is that because standards have changed? Is that because regulations have changed? Is that because we as a culture have changed? Or is it just always been a part of the entertainment industry that there is an element of seduction, whether it be in music, girls wearing short skirts and flimsy tops and guys walking around with their six-pack abs and these kind of things, and music itself, like, most songs are somehow either about sex or about drugs.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking from experience as a songwriter as well. Like Ariana Grande, for example, so much of her songs are complete and utter innuendo. So, how much of that exposure should parents be aware of, or at least kind of be cautious of, and how to have the conversations around that when it's something that's not as explicit as pornography, but something that is there and it's out in the public anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, just from a regulation standpoint, so the streaming platforms, there's so much content now that the system that we have is that they self-regulate and self-censor. So they put their own ratings on something, whereas historically, every piece of content that entered the country was rated by the classification office. So now there's a metric by which they are rating their content that comes up on Netflix or Prime or whatever it is, and then they're randomly audited to make sure that they're following that metric. But you can get, as you can imagine, some errors along the way. And also all of that information is online, like how they make those decisions and what a PG allows versus doesn't allow. And sometimes it's down to the line of a piece of body part. So YouTube's an example of this, where you can show basically anything, and social media, except you can't show the line of the labia. So you can't show the nipple, but you can show everything else. Like anything else is fine, but not the physical line of the labia or of the buttocks usually. So it's like really specific, and therefore a lot can make its way through. I think that we should be really intentional with all media. I don't think our kids should live in a bubble where they're not exposed to, slightly more advanced content, or they're not exposed to sexual themes, or they're not exposed to violence at all. I think it's about the way that we manage that. So I'm a big fan of watching that kind of content with them as is age appropriate. So not like watching an R16 with a 10-year-old, but if it's a PG movie, you've looked into it, it's going to have a little bit of something, and you think, oh yeah, my kid can probably tolerate that. Watch it with them and then have conversations. I recently watched the whole Twilight series with my 12-year-old son, and it was fantastic in terms of the amount of conversations we could have about relationships. We could have conversations about consent, about kind of emotions and how you communicate with someone that you like. There's a couple of sex scenes in it, and I gave him the option ahead of time. I said, you're 12 now, you can actually see some of this. It's up to you. I'm happy to watch it with you and see the whole movie through, or we can fast forward it, but these are your choices to make. No, I'm not going to choose for you. And he said, I don't really want to see it. Let's fast forward. And so that was up to him. But outside of those scenes that we fast forwarded, there was a lot of content that we could talk about. And so I would embrace some media that exposes them to ideas so that you can critique it. I think giving your kids free rein in media without any critiquing can be very harmful. So step in rather than step away.
And I imagine that you've already spent years laying foundations for those conversations already, correct?
Definitely. But even if I hadn't, and we were watching a movie or a show that had a bit of something, a classic is like Richie Rich, and this is not about sexualization, and it's not even about misogyny or anything like that, but in the boardroom of Richie Rich is all just white men. Everyone is the same age as well. And they're all identical. And, we all grew up on that and wouldn't have thought twice. But now we know a little bit more. And even if I'd never, built the foundation of those conversations I've got 3 boys, I can still ask a question like, guys, it's a bit weird, right? That they all look the same in a meeting. Like, what do you think about that? And then hear their perspective, and we can have a conversation. I don't have to know perfectly how I would, describe what I think is challenging about that. but rather just prompt thinking and reflection. And you can do that with any media. You can do it with a billboard. Like, what do you think about that billboard? Or you're playing a song. Like, what do you think about this song? What do you think they're trying to say? Do you like what they're trying to say? Do you think anything's weird about it? That's really just curiosity. It's not giving profound advice. It's just building great, what we call media literacy, which means that when they see really graphic, explicit content, like some of the stuff we've talked about, or even, they watch Game of Thrones or Heated Rivalry, or they watch, Summer I Turned Pretty, or whatever it is, they've just got a little bit of baseline critical thinking there that they're used to drawing on. They're used to asking themselves questions about media and pulling apart maybe the messages that they're giving, that's a skill set they've already been taught.